Hi, this is Adam Diaz with Back to Radio, and you're listening to Fast Facts, the show that'll learn you something interesting in somewhere around 10 minutes or so. Welcome to another episode of the show that should be called Your host, who suffers from writer's block and maybe even undiagnosed ADHD, stopped writing in the middle of his last script to bring you a new topic that wasn't discussed in the previous title. Kind of has a ring to it, doesn't it? Anyway, the point is, this isn't going to be the episode on Crassus and how he became one of the wealthiest men ever in known history. Instead, we'll take a trip to the Orient, specifically Vietnam, circa 1967, and before I get flack for using the term the Orient, I also use the term Occident. And if you don't know what that word means, Google it and realize I'm not being ethnically illiterate, I'm merely geolocating you and enjoying the use of flowery language. So anyway, why Vietnam during a time of war? Well, a few weeks ago I was at a bookstore to peruse the nonfiction section and pre-order Hero of Two Worlds, the Marquis de Lafayette in the Age of Revolution. And I happened upon a book titled The Greatest Beer Run Ever, a memoir of friendship, loyalty, and the war. As any mildly interested person would do, I read the front flap and I says to myself, that's kind of neat. And I put the book back because, no offense to Chick Donohue, memoirs aren't really my thing. But I'll probably get the audiobook version because there is a film adaptation in production over at Skydance, who produced for Paramount, and director Pete Farley has been attached to the project. The film received the green light back in 2019, so I'm assuming COVID has caused some issues with filming and potential release dates. But I guess trailers will drop sometime this year or next. If you don't want to wait or don't want to read nor listen, a short documentary by Pabst Blue Ribbon exists and is available on YouTube. Why am I telling you all of this? Well, it's because The Matrix has decided that I will see, hear, and learn about this greatest beer run. I'm not joking. Since the time I saw the book, I've received information on the book in a newsletter I'm subscribed to. An article was suggested to me on Facebook about the book. I saw a Today I Learned post on Reddit. And yeah, my frequency bias determined for me that I should go ahead and make an episode on the subject because why not share the story of a fellow vet and get his story out there? Maybe it'll inspire you to pick up and read his first-hand accounts of being a Marine, a mariner, and an American traveler in Vietnam during the time of the Tet Offensive. So here it is, the Cliff Notes version of when a barkeep said, "Someone should buy those boys over there a beer." And John Chick Donohue replied, "Bet," or whatever they said back then. How it all began? Well, as I just mentioned, a bartender made a claim, specifically of one George Lynch, or the Colonel as he was known at Doc Fiddler's in Inwood. Chick frequented Lynch's bar, as it was the neighborhood spot for him and the boys before the war. Being the late 60s, anti-war protests were all over the news and down the street in Central Park. This deeply upset the Colonel and the rest of the Inwood bar patrons. You see, a lot of boys from Inwood were serving in the war, and the Colonel and Chick saw anti-war protests as being anti-soldier. Well, the Colonel then proclaimed his idea that someone ought to bring the local Inwood heroes a beer to let them know they were just that. Heroes, and have support from back home. Given clear task and purpose, Chick Donohue took a job on the next ship headed to Nam from the Big Apple, the Drake Victory, a merchant vessel tasked with resupply. He got the names and units of half a dozen guys from the block, grabbed a sea bag stuffed full of PBR and messages from their families and friends. The voyage took 2 months and all of the beer. Chick simply told the New York Times when they asked about the original cases of Pabst, "It took 2 months to get there, so I drank all the beer." No worries, he restocked once in port at Quainan. Besides, he is merely saving his buds from skunk beer. And seaman gets bored while underway. I said good on him, I can relate. Remarkably, one of Donohue's marks was currently stationed in the same harbor that the Drake Victory was moored at. Attached to the 127th Military Police Company was Inwood pal Tom Collins. Chicky went and talked with the MPs inspecting the vessel's cargo and talked to them about his brother-in-law, Collins, that was in their unit. Pulling this yarn, he hoped the soldiers would be sympathetic and send his buddy Collins his way. His plan worked when his buddy showed up at the pier exclaiming, "Chicky Donohue, what the hell are you doing here?" According to Collin and the Times, Donohue simply replied, "I came to bring you a beer." Donohue at this point could have gone home. He went from New York to a war zone and brought beers to an Inwood boy. He actually did what he said he would. But this mad lad wasn't going to half-ass his mission. Donohue would deliver his packages of libations and messages from home to all of the Inwood lads, even with the Tet Offensive escalating engagements all over the South. Newman would be proud. That's a Seinfeld reference. With the unit information of his friends in hand, Donohue hitched rides with convoys, resupply helicopters, mail planes, and all sorts of means across the country. North, south, east, west, he tracked down his buddies like the Predator. You know, if all the Predator wanted to do was hand people a cold one instead of ripping out their spine. From the beaches of Quainan to the hilltops of Khe Sanh, in the streets of Saigon, Donohue single-handedly wrote the modern Marines version of the Odyssey. Now at this point, you might be skeptical. How the hell was this civvy accomplishing all this? How was he going all over a country ravaged by war and getting into and out of siege zones? Well, as any E4 below and the services can tell you, grab a clipboard and look like you're doing something and let others assume that you're busy. Same concept applies here. Showing up in a fancy pair of corduroys and slick patterned shirt, people just kind of assumed he was some sort of spook from the government. Why correct them if it helps him get from point A to point B? From Donohue's own lips, the longer I was there, I became aware that they're deferring to me and they didn't stop me. And I knew the lingo from being in the Marines, so it just kind of worked. OPSEC aside, that's just awesome. But maybe never just assume somebody's credentials. Maybe in the movie they'll have him bribing people with beer or something, but I think a Harrison Ford, Han Solo, Indiana Jones style approach would work best. So it's been 8 weeks now, and Chick has delivered all the beer and all the news from back home to his buds from Inwood. The ship Donohue was meant to take back to New York left poor without him. With no other options, he went to the U.S. Embassy in Saigon. Recall, I mentioned the Tet Offensive being in full swing. The long and short is that the Marine forward base at Khe Sanh was believed to be the main objective along with other border positions due to the bombardment, troop movements, and subsequent siege that started on the 21st of January. The reality, however, was that the Saigon government was the overall target. A coordinated strike was planned in secret by the North Vietnamese. 5 autonomous cities, 36 provincial capitals, 64 district capitals were all attacked. Taking a play from the Chinese Communist doctrine, the plan was to utilize a general offensive to achieve 2 goals. A general uprising, wherein the people of the South would rally to the communist cause and bring down the Saigon government with a People's Rebellion and Scratch Fighter Uprising, which would consequently weaken the American resolve to fight. Planning the attack around Tet was deliberate, as there was a ceasefire agreement in place, as well as the fact that the holiday is so sacred to the Vietnamese people, it is the equivalent to Christmas, Independence Day, and Easter all thrown into one. So the idea was it would catch everyone off guard and demoralize the Army of the Republic of Vietnam to the point of not fighting back. With American command believing Khe Sanh and other border areas to be the primary targets, the area known as the Saigon Circle, a 29-mile zone around the capital, was left undermanned while the city of Saigon itself merely had a single U.S. combat unit, the 2nd Battalion 13th Artillery, supporting the ARVN forces, who had been given charge of the city's defense only a month prior. The perfect storm was brewing for the city of Saigon to be a not-so-pleasant place to be, to put it lightly. On the 30th of January, all hell broke loose and the coordinated countrywide attack was executed, and our boy Chick Donohue was in the proverbial shit. He witnessed the battle unfold and saw how the outnumbered American ARVN fought valiantly during the attack. Before this 2-month-long beer run, Donohue resented the anti-war protesters. After Saigon, however, he started to change his mind. While he didn't agree with how anti-war protesters went about their movement, he says he understood we were fighting a war that wasn't worth it. The Vietnam War was a political dispute, Chick said. They were trying to settle their political dispute with the blood of young Americans, and that hurt. Chick Donohue made his way back home to Inwood, and to this day, still gets together with the boys for a beer. I doubt he has to buy this time, however. So that is the Cliff Notes to the greatest beer run ever. I don't know about you, but I'm sold, and I will most definitely be picking up a copy of the book sometime before the movie. Fun history is one of the main reasons I started this podcast, and who doesn't love a good story about the boys? Yeah, but that's going to be it for the episode today. I could fill time with the pickle story involving me and my best friends and a fishing trip, but I don't think there's anything to learn there except don't do rail shots of tequila. So anyway, thank you for listening. The Crassus episode should be posted soon. Keep up with all things Back to Radio and Fast Facts by following me on my socials. Back to Radio on the Gram and Facebook. That's with the 2 spelled out, TWO. Twitter, I'm Back to Radio with the number 2. But I'm going to be honest, I kind of hate Twitter. I know it's great to promote stuff, but it's just so toxic on there, and I can't stand it. So it's there, but I mainly post from Instagram, and it's kind of just shows up on Twitter. YouTube videos are on hold because my computer currently takes 48 hours to render a video. Can't really figure out how to fix it. I've really been trying hard. So I kind of do need to fix that or end up getting a new computer because that situation just, I have no viable solution to make videos right now. The wife and I are moving. So miniature challenge I've been doing for social media content, it's going to kind of start to slow down. When we move to the new place, I'll have my own little recording painting studio. Back to Radio is about to get all kinds of official. One final note is 5 Morbid Minutes is coming along great. Due to it being such short content, however, I plan on dumping a whole boatload of episodes on launch, which is why you don't see it out there just yet, if you were wondering. Socials have been plugged. Housekeeping has been resolved. So with that being said, this has been Fast Facts. I'm Adam Diaz. Thank you for listening. Adios.